Story 1. He invited me and others to his birthday party and used the gathering as a platform to present a multi-level marketing timeshare scheme. Story 2. He tried to frame me for 4 burglaries he had committed. He said it was all my idea, and I was interrogated for hours until investigators realized that nothing connected me to the crimes. Story 3. She stole a checkbook from my closet, dating myself, I know, and went on a spending spree, buying $7,500 worth of merchandise across the state. It did not end well for her. She went to jail. Story 4. He kept asking what I would do if he dated a girl I was seeing. I told him I would be angry and would cut him off. Once I found out they were dating, I easily cut the girl off, confronted him, and his response was, "Well, that is why I asked you. Cut him off too. It has been 25 years. Story 5. He spoke badly about me behind my back to my girlfriend to undermine me and make her leave me. She realized it from the first day. I did not believe her at first. To prove it, she recorded him saying terrible things about me. We had been friends for over 15 years. Story 6. They shared something I told them in confidence. That was the moment I knew the friendship was over. Story 7. When I was at my worst, they stopped giving a shit because it wasn't convenient for them. Story 8. He lived with me for 5 months and paid only $1,500 total. He ate my children's food, left for days at a time, and came back leaving laundry everywhere. He did not work while living with me. He moved back to his parents' house about 20 miles away and 2 days later called asking for a ride to apply for jobs. A week later, after starting a new job, he called me on his lunch break. Had just spent the night in the emergency room for a skin infection. It turned out he had brought bed bugs into my house from staying at filthy houses when he was away. Instead of asking if I was okay, he wanted me to bring him lunch at work. He was someone I had called my best friend for 15 years before he moved in. Meth is a terrible drug, and he has never been the same. I feel bad for him. Story 9. I was living with her and another roommate upstairs. Her mother and stepfather lived downstairs. Her stepfather asked me to come downstairs and made sexual advances toward me. Her mother noticed and walked away, saying, "Well, I'll leave you two alone, since I'm not wanted." I ran upstairs. He chased me and threw a wine bottle that hit the wall and shattered on the floor. I gathered my belongings and my cats and left. I called her. She did not believe me. I caught up with her a few years later, and she finally believed me because he had done the same to the other roommate. Our friendship was never the same. Story 10. For many people, the turning point is usually a pattern rather than a single incident. Repeated disrespect, manipulation, or betrayal that shows the friendship serves the other person first. Examples include taking advantage of your time or money, repeatedly canceling when you show up, or gaslighting you about how you feel. Once the relationship consistently erodes your self-worth, it is okay to walk away. Friendships should add to your life, not drain it. Story 11. I was always her emergency contact until I had an emergency. I called and texted for help. That is when I realized I was just her safety net, never her priority. Story 12. I was friends with a girl who was wonderful whenever we would meet one-on-one. But in group settings, she would become a serial gossiper who always excluded and ignored the quieter people. She would cackle, make inside jokes, and show pictures on her phone to friends A and B while completely ignoring friends C and D on the other side of the table, even when they asked to see what she was laughing about. Story 13. Someone created an anonymous email account to write to me directly about everything they disliked about me. Story 14. When he calls, all he wants to do is talk about himself. He does not even listen when I talk about what is going on in my life. Story 15. I told her that my dog had died. 2 days later, I heard from her. She said how hard her job was. Story 16. She used me to help research startup grants, do market research, and plan her new business with the promise of employment when it was up and running. I was her emotional support and spent hours listening to her personal and professional worries. I scaled back my own plans to meet the demands of helping her. I had surgery in August and confided in her beforehand because I was nervous. In addition to the surgery, I had a biopsy to rule out cancer, and I am being investigated for possibly having multiple sclerosis. All of this hit me in July, and it was a lot to deal with at once. I am usually guarded, but since she shared so much with me, I felt I could open up to her. She said, "Wow, that sounds like a lot. Sorry you're going through that." And that was it. I haven't heard from her since. She went from regular calls and texts to nothing. Story 17. I went home with the guy I liked during our date. Story 18. She said that if any of her children were gay, she would disown them. Story 19. The relationship had become one-sided. When we spoke or texted, it felt like I was talking to a wall. I realized I was just a disposable product she had grown bored with. Story 20. I had a friend who was conservative. I worked with him and we had a great relationship. After we both left for different jobs, when Obama was elected, he lost his composure. He began a relentless campaign of insults and challenges because I was not conservative. Finally, one day at a bar, I calmly told him that if he could not stay away from politics, we could no longer be friends. 5 minutes later, he started up again, so I got up and walked out. He called me many times, offering to pay for drinks, and I told him I was not interested in speaking with him ever again. He texted me for months. I did not block him, but I never answered. Story 21. I was sexually assaulted while under the combined influence of alcohol and drugs, and too intoxicated to resist. Story 22. I slept with the man I was dating. I forgave her. Then I proceeded to do the same with every man who showed interest in me. Psycho. Story 23. She swore that her mother would kick her out of college, withdraw financial support, and so on if she found out she smoked weed. Her mother confronted me while on the phone. A friend was with me in person, so I lied and said she never had. The friend did not even look at me. Her mother blew up and said she knew I was a liar because her daughter had already confessed to her. You could have whispered, written it down, or used hand signals. I was trying to save her. I never spoke to that friend again. That mother probably ruined all her daughter's friendships. Story 24. It ended after an out-of-state anime convention. He came with me, my then girlfriend, now my wife, and a few friends. He became upset and stayed in the hotel for all 3 days instead of going to the convention. Our hotel was not close, so we had to drive in. On the way back, he insulted her so much she started crying. She was the one driving him. I drove the other car. Only she and I had driver's licenses, and I was not told until after we got back. Story 25. My best friend of many years refused to come to my wedding during the coronavirus pandemic because they were not given a +1 for their boyfriend of 6 months. We were limited by state rules on the number of guests. Sorry, Grandma, you cannot come. I need your spot for a random person. Story 26. We were both pregnant at the same time. She kept talking about miscarriages throughout the pregnancy, insisting my belly was too small to carry a healthy child, and saying that even when everything looks good, you can still have a miscarriage. She advised me not to get a sleeping bag for the newborn, but to use a blanket instead because a sleeping bag would be too warm. Newborns cannot regulate their body temperature. There is no such thing as too warm in December when it is freezing outside, and newborns can suffocate if you use a blanket. Yes, she wanted my baby dead, even though she was pregnant herself. Story 27. I knew it was over when they ghosted me during my toughest time. It really showed their true colors. Story 28. She repeatedly complained that I was not spending enough time with her. When I suggested attending an event with others, which she thought was a great idea, she failed to tell me the time, the place, or the cost. Shortly before the event, she told a mutual friend, in my presence, that I was not invited. She chose to have birthday spankings at my birthday party without notifying me or getting my consent. This happened after 6 years of friendship during which I consistently helped her, giving her rides to places her car could not reach and offering my home as a safe haven. I was her practice partner for the hours she needed to complete her Pilates certification. When I pointed out a couple of issues and asked her to be kind to a new friend, she began to question the strength of our friendship. Story 29. He abused and neglected his dog, which I had to take in. He spoke negatively about another close friend who was helping him. He took advantage of her kindness, which was very disappointing. He listed my name as a reference for his car loan, and when he stopped paying, they harassed me while trying to contact him. Story 30. He told another friend something personal he had already told me. I did not know he had told the other person, and that person later mentioned it to him in conversation. He became furious with me for telling them, which I did not do. He used direct messages on every social media platform to insult me, refused to let me defend myself, and then blocked me on everything. He was known to block people when he was mad and then unblock them later. His friends usually ignored it. I did not. I blocked him back and never unblocked him to make sure it stuck, to show that my friendship could not be bought and that his behavior was unacceptable. He showed up at my house with snacks, flowers, and money, claiming he had come to accept my apology rather than to apologize himself. I told him I had no apology to give because I had done nothing wrong, wished him a good life, and hoped he would be a better friend to others. We never spoke again until my 8-year relationship ended, and he reached out from a new account asking to meet within minutes of my status changing. I ignored him. The other person later told him that he had told them himself, but he insisted they were covering for me. Story 31. I had surgery and they never asked if I was okay. I had looked after her daughter once a week for over a year, but because of a change in job, I gave her 12 weeks notice that would have to change. I was devastated because I loved that little bean, and I had surgery at the end of those 12 weeks. When I mentioned I was hurt, she did not ask if I was okay. She said that, while I was recovering from surgery, I had not checked in on her because she was pregnant and had morning sickness. She had been to a wedding but never asked about me. I had taken her food, water, and medication when she had COVID-19, and I left work to look after her child during a medical emergency. That was the final straw. I realized I was being taken advantage of, and that she probably did not really see me as a friend, but as someone convenient who could drive and who adored her. So I would do what I could, when I could, to make her life easier. Story 32. When I was at rock bottom, backpacking from state to state and actively looking for ways to be useful in the world, my best friend from college invited me to stay with him for a week. After 3 days, he asked me to leave because his husband was jealous of our friendship. He dropped me off on a street corner, and I stopped loving that friend. Story 33. I was recently divorced and not dealing with it well at all. I got really drunk and sobbed about my ex-wife in front of him. Later, he told the story to some women to try to make them laugh. Story 34. I caught her in another lie, and this time I wanted her to take accountability since she had never done it before and I had let it slide every time. Instead, she blocked me on social media to avoid taking responsibility. I am glad she did. I learned to move on without her and never looked back. She was not a good friend to begin with. Story 35. Would not hush up about Charlie Kirk and how we all need to have conversations. Story 36. Someone planted doubts in my mind about my boyfriend's faithfulness because they wanted to break us up and be with me. Story 37. He was telling a crazy story online, and when I reacted to it, he privately messaged that he had forgotten I was following him and told me not to tell anyone. At first I agreed, but then I realized that meant I was not supposed to know this either. It bothered me. The details did not add up, and I realized he was lying. Story 38. It was after years of him putting me down and intruding into every aspect of my life. One summer before the COVID-19 pandemic, our friend group discussed taking a weekend road trip to visit a friend living in another city. Nothing was decided except the weekend. I said we should not assume everyone would be free because the date was months away. I probably would have been free, but I did not want to spend an entire weekend with my control freak former friend who felt he had the right to dictate how I lived. A couple of weekends before the trip, I told the group I could not make it because a family obligation came up. Most of the group was understanding, but my former friend exploded, saying he should be my #1 priority and demanding that I cancel with my family. I had had enough and argued back. A few hours later, he apologized, saying he was sorry I felt that way and using work to justify his behavior. I was done with him after that. I still had a class with him the next semester, so I minimized interaction and left immediately after class. I never formally ended the friendship because that would likely have led to me being forced to apologize and keep him in my life, which would have made me miserable. Story 39. I have told this story a few times, but it took me too long to realize that he only called when he wanted me to do something for him. It was usually to give him a ride because he and his roommate did not have cars. He called me late one Thursday night asking me to drive him to a friend's house 2 hours away and pick him up a few days later so he could hang out. There was no emergency. He literally just wanted me to be his chauffeur. I said no. He got angry and said I was being a bad friend. I told him to look up a bus schedule and hung up. That was the last time I ever spoke to him. He tried to call a few months later, but I did not answer. I would like to believe he was calling to apologize, but I am sure he was just calling to try to get a ride, as usual. Story 40. He sexually assaulted intoxicated women at fraternity parties. Story 41. A man who had worked for me 25 years ago later became a friend. He started dating a wonderful woman who supported him through law school. About 4 years into their relationship, he left for special training on the East Coast and was gone for 9 months. She flew out to visit him once. He staged an elaborate proposal with rose petals, a suit, for string instruments and a fancy restaurant. She said yes. Less than 6 months later, he asked another woman there to marry him. He had been living with that woman, even during his proposal to my friend. He told my friend the night before she was supposed to visit him again. I am still friends with the woman and I officiated her wedding a few years ago. Story 42. The final straw came when I excitedly told her about a class I was taking that she had taken before. She interrupted me and said I was wrong, which was not true. My teacher was far more experienced than hers. My excitement fizzled out as I realized she did not care about connecting with me and only wanted to put me down. Years of friendship flashed before my eyes, and I saw that she had been cruel every time we interacted. I have not seen her since. Story 43. He had a spat with his roommate, a mutual friend, and called, trying to get me to cut that mutual friend off. He called repeatedly. I finally snapped and told him to stop. He hung up and we never spoke again. That was 22 years ago. Story 44. She was dating 5 people at the time. 4 were bartenders at local bars, and 3 worked at the same bar. I was already getting a little tired of her self-destructive behavior, but we went out one night to the bar where the 3 worked because one of them was on shift. She also invited the 5th man, who was just a local guy. She was there to meet 2 men she was dating, but neither of them knew. Then the other 2 bartenders were called in for their shift. They confronted her, told her to fuck off, and walked away. She grabbed me, started crying, and asked, "Why do these things always happen to me?" I knew right then and there she was never going to change and that she saw no issue with her actions. Story 45. We had already stopped being friends, but I was still living with him and others in the house that was being foreclosed on. I flew home for my brother's graduation, and we all planned to drive back together more than 2,000 miles with our belongings, since that was how we had all gotten there. Before I returned, he contacted me to say that he and roommate number 2 were not going to wait for me, so I would have to get home on my own. When I got back into town, I called a friend to pick me up at the airport because they were gone. He said, "No, they are not. We are in your house, smoking a blunt. They left when my friend arrived to pick me up. We have spoken only once since, I think in more than 10 years, and that was because the lazy helmet took my camping gear home with him. I had no way to camp on my way home and had to sleep in parking lots and rest stops for a couple of hours at a time because I was broke and had spent my last few dollars on a rental car to move my things back home." Story 46. We had been friends for almost 20 years. I told her my cat died tragically. She did not respond for a week because her cat was sick and she could not bear to think that the same thing might happen to her cat. She said she was going through a really hard time because of it. Story 47. Hard drugs. Once the bridge is burned. Last I heard, he is sober, but no one will talk to him, not even his grown child. Story 48. She lied and used people to boost her credibility. When I was going through a difficult period, she abandoned me. I see that she is now a supporter of Donald Trump. Story 49. He started posting far-right content on Facebook. When I called it out, he deleted my reply. Story 50. I warned her that one of our mutual friends from school was a creep. He had just admitted to me that he stole his ex-girlfriend's cat. which also belonged to her young daughter. I told her I had seen questionable behavior from him toward women. She replied that it must have been her because he does not treat her that way. She was foolish to say that. I told her and blocked her. Story 51. He disappeared for a month after I reached out. He was a stoner but lived right up the road from me, so after a month I stopped trying. Story 52. I was the captain of a high school sports team. As captain, I chose who moved up from junior varsity to varsity. I was choosing between two people for the final varsity spot and picked one because I thought he was my friend. A year later, when we were all back from our freshman year of college for winter break, he invited the whole team to his house except me. Fuck that guy. Story 53. While he was high on acid, which I did not realize at the time, he grabbed and sniffed my wife's hair. That ended our friendship, and I have not hung out with him since. Story 54. It was more important to him to carry a concealed firearm than to wear a mask during the coronavirus disease 2019 pandemic. In a completely safe town with no threats, I realized we had drifted so far apart in our ideals and beliefs that there was no return. He was the best man at my wedding, and now I wish I had chosen someone else. Story 55. She lied to her family about staying at our house when she was actually seeing her boyfriend. We were packing the car to go shopping when her dad pulled up outside and she got out looking suspicious. He left and she said, "Just wanted to stop by to say hey. I'm going to a friend's house, but I wanted to stop in." We replied, sure. We did not believe her and went to her parents' house later, thinking she was not staying with us and had told them she was staying at her boyfriend's. She did get in trouble, but somehow convinced her parents to let her stay out and go to her actual friend's house instead. She told that friend that I had simply forgotten about the plans we allegedly made, so she stayed with her boyfriend until alternate plans could be made. It was lies on top of lies. At school the following week, the friend said, "Sucks you forgot about it." And I said, "No, that's not what happened at all," and told them the truth. She did not like that and started making up rumors about me. I realized I did not have the time or energy to deal with it then. One of her friends remained friends with me and would tell her things I said. So I made a plan to invent stories on purpose to see if the mutual friend would pass them along. I would write these things down and let my actual friends know what I planned to say, and sure enough, she would find out and try to use it against me. I am glad school is over. From the occasional post on Facebook, she has not changed much and is still as juvenile and petty as she was 10 years ago. Story 56. They did not accept my husband because he was straight edge, and I became sober too. Story 57. She told me that she liked me better when I was inhaling carbon monoxide from a broken furnace, because I got upset with her awful behavior after the furnace was fixed. Story 58. She started flirting with the man who had attacked me while I was staying with her, even though she knew I did not want him to know where I was. She told him he should come over sometime to hang out with her, despite knowing everything he had done to me and how afraid I was of him. Story 59. She deleted 2 years of my business records from my OneDrive. I did not realize she still had access. She had helped me years ago when an employee fell ill. She filled in on her days off and I paid her. We had agreed long ago that she would share her location while dating in case a date went poorly or she ever felt unsafe. I reciprocated because it felt odd that only I could see her location. A few years ago, I moved 5 hours away. After I moved, she became nosy. If I was grocery shopping, she would ask what I was buying. At the theater, she asked who I was with and what I was watching. At first, it seemed innocent, just a nosy friend, but this spring it escalated. If she saw I was home, she would call and call, assuming I had nothing else to do. She once called 22 times in 10 minutes. The calls went on for hours, and I often did not answer because she seemed manic. I tried dropping hints that when I was home I was spending time with my family, cooking, cleaning, and putting the children to bed. My husband had had enough of her erratic calls and convinced me to stop sharing my location with her. She reacted with spite. She sent me abusive messages, mailed a crazed letter, and messaged me nonstop on all my social media platforms. She created fake accounts and messaged my business page. A few days later, I was sending my accountant my business receipts and expense and sales reports, and they were gone. They could not be found anywhere. I have no idea how, but she accessed my OneDrive from her phone or laptop and deleted everything. When she had filled in for my sick employee, she had used a business laptop. I never imagined she would log in to my business accounts from her personal devices. I pray I never get audited because my entire 2024 business expenses have to be reconciled using only bank statements. I do not have a single business receipt for the entire year. My digital records are gone. Story 60. She invited me to her wedding while I was going through a deeply depressing time, and her friends bullied and mentally tortured me throughout the weekend. Story 61. She began ignoring me at work as if I had done something to upset her. I do not know what made her upset. She never told me, but I believe a coworker made up something that turned her against me. This happened 9 years ago, and I resigned because of health issues. I have not seen or spoken with her since. I cried for months because I missed her and because our families had been friends for many years. Story 62. In a truly cliché moment, my so-called best friend slept with my fiancé during a period of relationship drama. It turned out he was toxic, and I did not recognize how terrible he and several others in my social circle were at the time. That incident is the moment I discovered that 4 of my friends were bad people. Story 63. I once said I wanted a friendship bracelet, and she immediately offered to make one for us. Years passed and she did nothing, so I assumed she had forgotten. We had already had problems in our friendship, so we were both on thin ice. Then one day she started talking to a girl in our class, and in less than a week she had made a bracelet for her. The girl was innocent and sweet, caught up in this mess, and my former friend gifted her the bracelet in front of me. When she saw me, her smile died and she looked angry, but she greeted me as usual. I do not think she realized how she was staring at me, but I never forgot it. I stopped messaging her, and we have not spoken since. Story 64. He and my girlfriend got together. They have successfully moved on without keeping in touch or checking each other's social media. They could be married now for all I know. Story 65. He was late for the dinner I had invited him to and prepared because he had gone out beforehand. Story 66. That person hit on me for years. I said no clearly, but we remained in the same friend group of Dungeons and Dragons players and gamers. It was only uncomfortable when it was just the two of us. I thought he was okay with being friends only, but he always somehow managed to test my boundaries. I offered to pause or end the friendship and not see each other for a period so he could focus on himself, process his feelings, and shift his attention toward women, who reciprocated. He always disagreed and asked for advice on how to look attractive to women in general, begging on his knees that I not tell anyone in the friend group that he had hit on me. He was deeply insecure about being a virgin in his late 20s, which I did not find embarrassing or odd. I had empathy for his insecurities. Back then, I guess I was not mature enough to recognize that I felt harassed by his flirting and attempts, but we kept contact anyway. At some point, our meetings felt different. He became more confident. His whole demeanor changed. I could not believe it. He even seemed attractive to me. Still, my feelings did not change, and I told him I wanted to pause the friendship because it did not feel right for me. Suddenly he gave me an ultimatum: become friends with benefits or end the friendship forever. I was completely speechless. Angrily, I told him that women are not vending machines that dispense sex for niceness, and of course we ended the friendship. I regretted every minute I had spent with him. Then another close friend told me that the man had spoken disgustingly about a female friend of mine, who he had supposedly just slept with. They had met and spent some time together shortly before that. He bragged about every detail in front of a stranger who knew her, disrespecting her completely. Understand it was his first time and he was insecure and people share things, but he could have done it with more dignity. He portrayed her as if she would do anything if asked. I do not know if I sound prudish, but you should watch your tone when discussing intimate details with someone you have just met. I texted her immediately that I needed to talk. She was baffled at first, but when I called and told her the facts, she cried a lot. Not because she had feelings for him, but because he had stepped on her dignity as soon as the opportunity arose. She apparently slept with him because he kept asking and begging. She had privately said that sex and love are different for her, so she did it thinking she was doing him a favor and that they were close friends. During the call, she also told me he had hit on her the whole time, just like with me, begging us to stay quiet and not tell anyone. What a complete nutcase. Sorry if my English is bad. I am not a native speaker. I would be interested to hear how you feel about this. Story 67. He told me he slept with a girl he knew I had liked for years, just to hurt me during a stupid argument. Story 68. When I got engaged, my then fiancée and I drove 7 hours to her house. As soon as she saw my engagement ring, she said she had always thought she would be the one to walk down the aisle before me, and that she would always be the bridesmaid and never the bride. That was about 15 years ago, and I have not spoken to her since. Story 69. We were in a group of friends in class. I skipped school because it was my grandpa's funeral. She took the chance while I was gone to badmouth me to our friends, saying I'm a narcissist because I get better grades than her and because I am top of the class, that I'm a pick-me because I am close with the guys in the friend group and they do not like her because I wear lip gloss and because I laugh with my guy friends, and that I am a bitch because she claimed I was seeing 2 boys at the same time, though I never even had a talking stage, by the way. Worst of all, she made fun of me for losing my grandpa. Now nobody talks to her, not even teachers. Story 70. We were best friends for 19 years and signed a pledge to stop using the R word. After a man chose to fight me when I was just trying to be friendly, my best friend said, "I swear to God you're fucking autistic." I walked away and have not spoken to him in 7 years. Story 71. My so-called friend of over 25 years launched a nasty personal attack on a mutual friend, insulting his children and family, then turned on me when I tried to check that the friend was okay. Story 72. I found out she showed my closest friends a video of my boyfriend sleeping with his ex at a party, the video having been taken without consent in years before I met him. So I have no idea how she obtained it. That was the final straw. She had already been on thin ice for lying about her mother having a heart attack to avoid a birthday celebration that she had planned, so she could go get Kentucky Fried Chicken and watch Netflix with her boyfriend. It is embarrassing how much I put up with from her. She was a thief and a liar. Last I heard, she got divorced after less than a year of marriage and is now renting a place with a convicted rapist, which is ironic considering she claims to have been raped by 4 different people in her life. Story 73. They blamed me for becoming addicted to drugs and for being expelled from school. Story 74. They faked a terminal illness and then a coma because we were growing apart due to their constant lies and manipulation. I wish I were making this up. Laughing out loud. Story 75. He insulted me and our other friends' wives. Goodbye. Story 76. He was critical of actions and circumstances he did not perform or endure. Story 77. Her husband came up to me and said, "I bet you're sick of that woman staying at your house after too many wines." She had never once stayed at my house. I just stared blankly at her husband. I had thought she enjoyed going out with me, but she had mostly been using me as a scapegoat for her affair. I was mortified and never spoke to her again. Story 78. She began living a reckless and dangerous life, getting arrested and committing all kinds of crimes, both violent and non-violent. She moved frequently and changed jobs, and there was constant family drama. We grew up together. I had always loved her and we were very close for many years. After her first arrests and no change in behavior, I realized the relationship was not healthy. I did not know how to support her or maintain our friendship without becoming too involved. She was associating with dangerous people, and I slowly let the friendship go. I felt terrible because I missed her. One day, after months of silence, she called me out of the blue from a random number and casually asked how I had been. I gave a vague response and asked the same. She said, "Well, I was in jail, if you can believe that, but I sorted it all out." Her tone was unnervingly calm and nonchalant. I realized she thought all of this was normal. If you do not care about these things happening to you, you will not hesitate to involve others or let them experience the same. Story 79. Nous avons été amis pendant 20 ans. Mon père est mort. Elle n'est pas venue à l'enterrement et a arrêté de me contacter. Story 80. She punched me in the face for no reason. She was pregnant, so I did not retaliate. The whole family is toxic. Story 81. He embraced Make America Great Again. It is sad. He has a degree in engineering but must have really worked at it. I never realized he was a bit slow. He has been my best friend for 50 years, and I am so embarrassed for him. From Christian to cultist in 3 years. Rest in peace, Scott. Story 82. She, a white woman, said that as a Wiccan she was persecuted more than any black or brown person in the history of the planet. Story 83. I don't think anyone has done anything that has affected me. I lent someone money and was not paid back, but I was under the influence of hard drugs at the time, so I blame myself more than anything. Sober me would never lend money to anyone. It was not a large amount. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.